Hi, this is Iris from the Warriors Walk, and I have a message for you. God gave me during the week this verse, and it's kind of been playing over and over and over in my mind, and I knew this was something I had to bring forward. It is in Numbers chapter 11, 5 and 6. It says, we remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and garlic. But now our whole being is dried up. There is nothing at all except this manna before our eyes. And God gave me this. God freed them from Pharaoh. He freed them from slavery. And here they are in the wilderness, and all they could remember was the food that they got while they were enslaved. They couldn't remember how bad it was. They couldn't remember that, yeah, they got food, but they were slaves. They weren't free, and they had nothing. Nothing belonged to them. But yet, while they were in the wilderness, while they were in their hallway before the next door opened, before they got to their promised land, they were eating manna. And instead of being grateful for their freedom, and instead of being just thankful for not having to be slaves and work to the bone, all they could remember was the food they got. They forgot the bad, and they kept looking back. And because they kept looking back, they were not able to move forward. I mean, their journey to their promised land was only supposed to be 11 days. But yet, it took them 40 years because they couldn't stop looking back. They couldn't be grateful for the moment that they were in right now. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says, be thankful in all circumstances. But they couldn't see past the manna because, and they couldn't see where they were going. They all they could think about was what they left behind, as if what they left behind was so grand. They prayed to Jesus to take them out of this situation, but yet they kept looking back as if. And God spoke this to my heart. And I need to say this. A lot of my videos and a lot of the things you will see is not because I've reached a point where I'm over this and I'm past this. A lot of times God speaks to me because I am still in that moment. Because I am still growing. Because I am still discovering. Because I am still sometimes, I am still in that pause, in that wilderness when it comes to certain areas of my life. And God said to me, you're looking backwards as if you prayed for God to take this off of you, to take you out of here. But yet, you're looking backwards. Has God taken you out of a situation you prayed to be freed from? But here you are free, and you're still looking backwards. Was it a bad relationship? And you're looking backwards because now you're sleeping alone, and your loneliness is making you believe that what you had back there is better than sleeping alone? Did God take you out of a bad home situation? It doesn't necessarily have to be like your boyfriend, girlfriend kind of deal, but a bad situation, and put you in a different location. And instead of being grateful for getting out of the drama, the mess, or whatever that was, maybe he removed you from a neighborhood that was full of just horrible things happening, and now you're in this place and you don't know nobody, so now you feel alone, and you're saying, At least back there I had friends, or at least back there I knew people, and now I'm here and I don't know anybody. And you're looking back at that as if. Did God remove you, upgrade your life even, and you're still looking back because you're missing something? See, the people stood in the wilderness because they'd forgotten the pain of the past, and they'd forgotten what they prayed for, and they'd forgotten what it was. And they stood in the wilderness longer because they lacked the faith to move forward. So is that where you're at right now? That you prayed for God to take you out of a situation, and you've lacked the faith, the obedience, the thankfulness to move forward. God is telling you, you have to let all that go and be thankful and grateful right here, right now, in this moment. It may not be what you want and what you dream for, but what you dream for could be on the other side of your thankfulness, of your faithfulness, of your obedience. Do you want to wander this wilderness for the next 40 years, or do you want to see your promised land? That is what God is asking you, asking me right now. Stop looking backwards and start going forward. Let go of your old ways and step into the life that God is calling you to live. It's not going to be easy because, we've all been what we have been for however long we've been in, right? Whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50 years old and you're new to the faith, or you're not new, but you're new to obedience, and you're new to this, and God is calling you somewhere, but your flesh has always won. And now God is saying, if you want my promised land, you have to let the Holy Spirit win. You have to let go of your flesh desires and move forward in faith. God is calling us to move forward, but we have to let it all go. Our past, our flesh desires, our own wants. We have to literally say and mean, God, not my will, but yours. But yours. And walk in that direction. Look for his voice, hear it, and walk in obedience. Because if we want to see our promised land, if we want to experience the promise of Jeremiah 29:11, then we have to walk in faith. We have to let it all go. God is calling you out of the wilderness. But you can't come out of your wilderness if you haven't let it all go. If you haven't learned to walk in faith. If you haven't learned to walk in obedience. And it's not just kind of doing what God says. It's doing what God says the way he calls you to do it. The reason, if you read about the 40 years in wilderness and how Moses led these people, you'll also know that Moses did not make it to the promised land. And he didn't make it to the promised land because because he lacked faith and obedience, because God called him to do something. And instead of doing it the way God told him to do it, he did it his way. And God said, that's not what I told you to do. And that's the thing. We want out of the wilderness. Then first we let the past go. We stop fantasizing what it was and we remember what it really was, right? We stop glorifying, making the little times that were good bigger than what the bad times were, okay? And if we want out of the wilderness, then we have to walk in faith and we have to be thankful for where we are right now, because knowing this, I may not be where I want to be, but God has a place for me. And as long as I walk in obedience here, if I'm thankful for what I have here, I'm thankful that I'm not in slavery anymore. I'm thankful that I'm not in pain anymore. I'm thankful I'm not in that situation anymore. I'm thankful. God will bless that thankfulness. And you'll start seeing more light out of that wilderness. And if we walk in obedience, because that obedience is full of faith, that obedience is full of letting God know that when you get to that promised land, you'll be able to do what he calls you to do because you are hearing him, you are listening to him, and you are following him. God doesn't call us to walk alone. As Christians, we're called to walk like Jesus walked. We are called to follow him. Not in our own way, not, God doesn't say you're going to go here, but I want you to go this way. And you decide to go around, up and down. God's like, yeah, no, you're not getting into your promised land until you do things my way. So what is keeping you from your promised land? Are you still looking back? Are you feeling sorry for yourself at this moment and forgetting to be thankful for where you at? Thankful and knowing that God's not done with you. Thankful and being thankful that you're no longer where you were and you're no longer the person you were. Are you lacking obedience? Is God calling you to do things that you still haven't done yet? Is God calling you to start a project, to walk this way, to speak to someone, to do something that you still haven't done yet? What's keeping you in your wilderness? Warriors, I'm asking you to take a moment to realize why you're still in your wilderness, why you haven't seen the promised land. Pray about it. Go to Jesus. Ask him to reveal what's stopping you. What's your roadblock? And it won't not be necessarily the enemy. It could be you. We need to go to God and ask him to remove us out of our own way so that we could keep walking the way God calls us to walk. Be blessed, be a blessing, and keep walking, warriors. Keep walking.